Hi, I'm Randy Mulder, and welcome to episode 1 of The Old Man's Jam Jar. In case you haven't listened to or watched the introductory video, what I want to do is I want to go back to the record collection that I accumulated through the 70s and the 80s when I was between 15 and 30, maybe 35, and was buying vinyl records as a big music fan, and new sounds were coming on, and I had various influences, and it led me to a fairly significant record collection, vinyl records, and now looking back, it's 40 to 50 years later, and I like looking at those albums again and going, would I still invest money in this? Would I still buy this record? So that's, if the answer is yes, then that record or that one goes into the Old Man's Jam Jar. It's a jam. It's still a jam. It's 40 years later and I would still buy that record. So let's go back. 1977 is when I purchased my first vinyl record. I am the third of 4 boys, and my 2 older brothers were both into music, so was my mother. So we had various influences. My mother went from Gordon Lightfoot, Joan Baez, Joni Mitchell, Cat Stevens, and things like that, as well as heavy classical, Bach, Beethoven, Mozart, Pachelbel, you name it. So lots of music in our house and lots of musical influences coming in these ears. And my oldest brother Rick, peace to Missouri over there, my oldest brother Rick had already started his own record collection. So a lot of the influence of my early records was coming from the records that my brother had already purchased, and then listening and developing my own sense. And you know, everybody's taste in music is a little bit individual, very unique. Not everything that he bought I liked. His Rod Stewart album just didn't do it for me. But sorry, Rod. And so 2 of the records that he had that I played a lot were Crime of the Century and Crisis What Crisis from 1974 and 1975, 74, 75 from Supertramp. I love these records. We'll be touching base on those a little bit later on, but that was the setting in 1977. And in 1977, I'm listening to the radio and I hear this. Yeah, technical difficulties. That guitar. This song has been on so many ads and has been played so much that even some Supertramp fans have learned to actually dislike the song Give a Little Bit. A Roger Hodgson composition, Roger and Rick Davies being the 2 lead composers and members of the Supertramp group. But that song struck me in 1977. It was like, oh wow, this is a really cool song. Stated, give a little bit. You're walking around, get a little bit of your love to me. And so this, Even in the Quietest Moments by Supertramp, became album number 1 in my collection. So now the question is, now it's 2020. It is 43 years later, and would I still buy this record? So we're going to go through it a little bit. This isn't really a record review, but I think I'm obliged to go back and go, was I happy with this purchase? I mean, you understand that vinyl records, back in these days, I'm 15 years old, I'm just in high school, and used to lie in front of the stereo on a carpet with a pillow, usually a book, those big giant over-the-ear earphones on, and a cord that went to the stereo receiver, and throw the record on, and you do this. You have the words, you've got all kinds of liner notes all over the place, you've got pictures that are very interesting on the front and on the back, you get to know the songs, you play the side A, you flip it over, you play side B, and then you do it again. So I've listened to this album hundreds and hundreds of times, all the way through. And I find that Supertramp, from Crime of the Century, Crisis What Crisis, Even in the Quietest Moments, and then to Breakfast in America, their big commercial hit, I don't find a really weak song in any of those four albums. I can listen to the beginning of Crime of the Century right through the end of Breakfast in America. The only thing that affects me now and then is a song like The Logical Song, even Breakfast in America, the big hits from Breakfast in America. I've heard them so many times that it almost gets to the little point of being, I really just don't want to listen to that right now, at which point, if I'm feeling the urge to go back to Supertramp, yeah, it's one of those earlier three albums, Crime of the Century, Crisis What Crisis, or this one that we're talking about today, Even in the Quietest Moments. There's a number of things about this. First of all, basically they're piano-driven band. Supertramp, the heart of their music is piano. It comes out of the keyboards. And then they've got Hellowell, the saxophone player. There's usually a point that's somewhere in each song where there's a significant role for a saxophone solo or something like that. But they're very artistic. They go from, they're not your typical verse, chorus, fade. They've got bridges and transitions that are unlike any other, and very easy when you're listening to an album by Supertramp to start visualizing. Your mind, it's like reading Lord of the Rings. Your mind creates a picture of what they're singing about and what they're talking about. So, I mean, from the first song, Give a Little Bit, and then the second song, Loverboy. The Loverboy song has probably some irony and a little bit of stuff going on. The Loverboy song has one of my favorite lyrics of all Supertramp songs in it. It goes, he's got a thing in his head. He's got a thing in his head. It's from a book he's read. It's got a funny title. It tells you how to be vital. And I always think how to win friends and influence people. Maybe Rick Davies, I don't know whether that book came before or after this, but those books that are the catchy, how to be a cool guy, or how to have long hair and a ponytail and pick up chicks. It's one of those things that just, it struck me way back in '77, and it's still stuck with me. And I love during that song when we get to that point, I'm singing along usually, and I just love that line. He's got this thing in his head. It's from a book he's read. It's got a funny title. It tells you how to be vital, as if you're going to learn from some pop culture book how to be cool. Then we've got Even in the Quietest Moments. The album name came from that song. Again, it's those bridges and textures, and it's classical. It starts with bird sounds, for Pete's sake. You feel like you're out in the boonies there, relaxing, and even in the quietest moments, I wish I knew what I had to do. And right away, you can picture yourself under a tree, with this environment that they've created. And it's very, very visual. You're using your senses as you're using just hearing, but you can envision a scenario or a setting for a song like this. Another big one for me in terms of Supertramp is Rudy from Crime of the Century. And they really built that up on their live concerts. When they played Rudy, they had like train scenes and stuff like that. But yeah, you get that picture. And they did a really good job on their concerts of creating or adding to the visual that you already had in your head just from listening to the music. And I find that that's such a huge part of music, is I don't just want it's got a good beat and you can dance to it, the American Bandstand thing. I'm not really, I've been through a dance stage. Yes, I'm now 58 years old, but I used to go to dance clubs. But sometimes you just want to listen to great music, and I find Supertramp is phenomenal listening music. So then you've got, after Give a Little Bit, Loverboy, Even in the Quietest Moments, Downstream, and another one. I don't want to destroy it by talking too much about it, or making this into a record review, or, ooh, this is a good song, I give it a 6. The flow is very, very nice. You go from one song to the next on that side A of Even in the Quietest Moments, and the transitions are great. You can go from one song to the next without, you're not going from, some giant rock blaster into some light little ditty on the piano. So another interesting song is the first song on side B is Baba G. Now, I gotta say, I bought this album in 1977, and in 2019 I had a friend who went to a variety store, and he was doing a little video, and he's calling the owner of the variety store Baba G, the letter G. And of course, in my head I'm going, oh, Baba G, have you a song for me? Singing the song Baba G. And then I realized, back in 77 we had no Google, so I actually Googled Baba G, what is this? And found out that there is, from India, a religious guru whose name was Babaji, and that Roger Hodgson during this time was exploring, like the Beatles did and like a bunch of other groups did over time, the meaning of life and different religions, world religions, and that Roger Hodgson had a little influence from the Indian, I don't know whether it's Hindu but anyhow, the Indian culture, and this song Babaji was a result of that. So the whole, all of my life I felt that you were listening. Anybody who has a religious sense, I think that's a universal thing. Whatever your religion is, I know I'm a very religious man, and I do believe that all of my life I felt that God was listening to me. For me, it's the Judeo-Christian creator God. In this song, he's talking about, Babaji, and I'm not going to get into the value or not value of each individual thing, but it speaks to the heart and soul at a level that is deeper than some of the other songs on this record or from their various other albums. Then the Rick Davies classic, From Now On, which people who have heard it say that it's annoying how it ends, because he does the repetitive, guess I'll always have to be living in a mystery, living in a fantasy. That's the way it's got to be from now on. And then a little bit off version of it, but it just keeps good. But if you really get into the whole album and everything, it is a nice transition song from Babaji to the epic Fool's Overture. Now, Fool's Overture is just a fantastic composition. It's a fantastic piece of music. It's got drama, it's got melody, it's got beat, it's got everything. I just love that piece of music, and it ends the album really, really well. So basically, I've got 7 songs on a record, and great liner notes, a great album. I've had this in my hands and lied down with the earphones on many, many times, as I've said. And now in 2020, there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that is still a jam. This is not only the first record I ever bought, but it's going to be the first record that's in the old man's jam jar. Anyhow, I'd love to hear comments. Do you have anything that you like or don't like about this album, or about what's been briefly discussed here? And yeah, look forward to discussing more music as we go through the series. Thanks for watching.